it's very exciting for me as a historian. You know, I spend my time in archives and libraries and dusty old stuff, and here you are living history. And it's a thrill and an honor for me to be here. So if you can all see over there, I'm going to be showing a few illustrative slides. If you can't see them, see me afterwards and I'll give you a private showing. We can do that. I'll wait at the table, but I'll also try to describe them. So, celebrating the women of World War II. When America entered World War II, the country had no choice but to call upon an underutilized, underappreciated, and all too often denigrated resource. Woman power. A word, believe it or not, that was commonly used during World War II. It appeared in Business Week and Fortune magazine, Reader's Digest. Woman power. Doors that had been tightly shut opened, although not always easily. Discussions in Congress about legislation to create women's military units prompted a congressman from Michigan to fret about, quote, who then will manage the home front? Who will do the cooking, the washing, the mending? A congressman from New York sputtered, what's become of the manhood of America that we will have to call on women to do what has been the duty of men? General Thomas Holcomb, Commandant of the United States Marine Corps, said he didn't believe women could serve any useful purpose in the Marines. General Dwight D. Eisenhower was actually violently opposed against the idea of women in the military. As for women working in defense factories, objections ranged from male bosses declaring that the work was too heavy, too dirty, and too dangerous for women, to husbands insisting that their wives had their hands full taking care of the house, the children, and him. That doesn't surprise anyone, does it? These objections withered in the face of the unprecedented, overwhelming challenge of fighting a war that spread from Europe to Asia to North Africa. By the fall of 1941, growing numbers of women were at work in the defense industry and what were called essential civilian jobs. In 1942, Representative Edith Norris Rogers spearheaded the establishment of the Women's Auxiliary Army Corps, WAC with 2 A's, there you go, which became the Women's Army Corps WAC. Are there WACs here? With 1 A. So we have WAC, there we go. Okay, we're here for the WACs. Representative Margaret Chase Smith introduced legislation to create the United States Navy Women Accepted for Volunteer Service, or WAVES. Do we have a wave here? Yes. Yay, okay. We have a wave. In the fall of 1942, 2 highly skilled women pilots organized 2 groups of women pilots. Nancy Love formed the Women's Auxiliary Faring Squadron, and Jacqueline Cochran formed the Women's Flying Training Detachment, which would merge into the WASP. Do we have a WASP? There's a WASP on the list, so there's a WASP, the Women's Air Force Service Pilots. The United States Coast Guard, and I know we have a Coast Guard person there, known as SPARS. Did you call yourself SPARS?
Yes.
Yes. Was created in November of 1942 in the United States Marine Corps Women's Reserve in June of 1943. All across America, women were exhorted to join the military or to a volunteer organization or to get a defense job. Films with names like Glamour Girls of 43 were shown in movie theaters, community centers, schools. Radio advertisements echoed the message, "We need you!" Exclamation point. "We need you!" Exclamation point. Posters were plastered everywhere. The WAC with 2A, calling with double A, meet total war with your total effort. The WWII with 1A. Are you a girl with star-spangled heart? Join the WWII now. Army Nursing Corps, you're needed now. WAVE, enlist in the WAVE. Release a man to fight at sea. Join the Navy Nurse Corps. Serve with Women Reserves, United States Coast Guard SPARS. And there's also another Coast Guard poster out on the display, the marvelous display table. Be a Marine and fight. Right? Be a Marine, free a Marine to fight. These are the wings that WASP were awarded when they graduated, and here's the pin of the American Women Voluntary Service. Volunteer for victory. Offer your service to the Red Cross. Women, there's work to be done and a war to be won now. Women in the war, we can't win without them. Those last two, of course, are aimed at getting women to do defense works. Do we have some women defense workers? There we go. Okay, hooray. All right. Women defense workers. A Marine recruiter in New Orleans went so far as to commission a Smith statue, Smith, because of rationing, a Smith statue that stands 12 feet tall on an 8-foot base of a woman in a Marine uniform that was erected on November 10th, 1943 on a street corner with a plaque reading, Molly Marine, free a Marine to fight. True story. That statue is still in New Orleans. It survived Katrina, and it's actually been replicated. It's actually now standing, a duplicate of that at the Marine base in Quantico and the Marine base at Paris Island, the statue that was erected in 1943. Millions of women responded to their country's call. More than 6 million women went to work in defense factories. 3 million women worked in essential jobs. 3 million more served as Red Cross volunteers. Millions more joined other voluntary organizations. And here's just a sample. The essential civilian job, police officers, working on farms, a scientist. This is Elizabeth Ackerman. At 21 years old, she invented a glue that was strong enough to hold up a locomotive engine. And the press release about her achievement said, lest anybody think that Elizabeth Ackerman might get ideas about having a career as a scientist, it said she learned her skill as women do in the kitchen. This woman, actually I happen to know her name, it's Norma Cutting. She's working high above a factory floor, way up high. Many of the jobs women did were extraordinarily dangerous and arduous. Here 2 welders, and here of course are 2 riveters. And do you all know how riveting works? It actually takes 2. Lucy said yes. Does anybody? It takes 2 people. It takes a bucker with a bar, that's the woman inside, and then a woman with the riveting gun. And so the rivet goes through and hits the bucking bar, and that. Now I learned that from a woman named Jan Berenstain. Does that name ring a bell with anyone? Yeah. Exactly. Jan Berenstain, who I was fortunate enough to interview, taught me how she was a riveter in World War II, and she credited the work ethic she learned and working in defense factories to what allowed her and her husband Stan to create all those books. Jan is now deceased, but that was sort of fun as a mother and a grandmother for me. Not that any of my children or grandchildren were impressed that I talked to Jan Berenstain, but I thought it was cool. Almost 400,000 women served in the military during World War II. And here's some of them. WACs, repairing an airplane. These are WAVE instructors with machine gun. They're going off to train soldiers on how to load and shoot and aim these guns. They're the WASPs, 4 WASPs, Women's Air Service Pilots. A SPAR, there's a SPAR doing radio transmissions. A Marine loading a depth bomb onto the bottom of a plane. Red Cross worker, and actually that is a picture of a Red Cross worker named Esther Newberg who actually died on Anzio Beach. And an army nurse disembarking at Naples in Italy in 1943, and a Navy flight nurse on Iwo Jima. Military women served in every combat theater. They earned many medals and commendations, including Purple Hearts, Bronze Stars, Silver Stars, Air Medals, the Legion of Honor. In the Army Nurse Corps alone, 1,619 medals and commendations were awarded to women. Army and Navy nurses were held as prisoners of war. Military women died in the service of their country, including 38 WASPs, whose burial expenses were not paid by the military. And more than 200 nurses died. Remember General Holcomb, who didn't think women would be useful? Remember him? He changed his mind. He decided that yes, women were extraordinarily useful, and he admitted that publicly. And Dwight Eisenhower, he actually made a speech after the war on the floor of Congress and admitted again that he had been violently against women, but then announced, every phase of the record they compiled during the war convinced me of the error of my first reaction. By the end of the war, women war workers in defense factories had played an indispensable part in setting a wartime production record that Time magazine called a miracle. Almost 300,000 airplanes, over 100,000 tanks and self-propelled guns, 88,000 warships, 370,000 artillery pieces, 47 million tons of artillery ammunition, and 44 billion rounds of small arm ammunition. Women such as this one, Norma Jean Baker Doherty, who worked at Radioplane Corporation in Burbank, won production awards. Anybody know who that is? Marilyn Monroe. Yes, Marilyn Monroe. And the story goes that she was incredibly annoyed when the Army photographer came to take her picture for PR purposes, because she just wanted to get back to work and earn another production award. 2 black women at Lockheed set an all-time record for riveting speed. Male plant managers began to request women workers because, as one plant manager said, women workers were more conscientious than men. Nothing gets by them unless it's right. Another manager reported that women take orders easily. Is that true? Well, not really? Well, this guy thought so. But then he goes on to say, and this is true, quote, they have the patience of Job and are more frank than men. When they make an error, they come and tell me. That's true, right? When the war ended, these extraordinary opportunities for women ended. Rosie the Riveter disappeared as quickly as she had been created. The WASPs were disbanded in 1944. By 1946, the Waves, Spars, WACs, and Marines were discharged. And women's stories and records of their service and contribution during World War II were often forgotten. Over the years, I've taken many road trips in search of landmarks to women. Along the way, I've discovered some dedicated to women of World War II. And I'm going to show you one in Chicopee, Massachusetts. I actually drove to Chicopee on Wednesday on that freezing, freezing cold day because I wanted to show you this memorial. And as I said, if you can't see it that clearly now, see me afterwards. But it's 8 foot tall, and you can see that there are tablets, granite tablets of equidistance. You see how they're sticking out like this? Okay, you've got a sense of that? And what's really interesting is each pair of tablets is dedicated to a different branch of the military. One side is for the male record, the other side for the female. For example, this is for the WAC, and it gives the information about when they were founded, but then it also says 8,000 served in Europe, 5,500 in the Pacific. U.S. Army Nurse Corps, 60,000 plus, served in every theater of war, landed in North Africa and Europe. 200 plus lost their lives. Next, waves, and it says more than 100,000 served at all naval stations in the U.S. and Hawaii. U.S. Navy Nurse Corps, 14,000 served stateside in Pacific Islands, Bataan, Corregidor, Iwo Jima, Okinawa. Next, U.S. Marine Corps Women Reserve, 20,000 served stateside and in Hawaii. SPARS, more than 10,000 served stateside and in Alaska and Hawaii. And the WASPs and the other branches that had women pilots. 174 women ferried new planes and flew target planes. And by meaning flying target planes, they flew planes with not much of a lead, dragging sort of a flag-like thing, while novice soldiers were shooting at them. And yet these were women who told they couldn't fly in combat. So they performed essential roles. Another landmark is here in Bergen County. And I happened to visit it. It was freezing cold when I went to Chicopee. My hands turned bright red taking photographs. And I thought about the day in 2012 when I went to, anyone know where that is? Woodridge, the Rosie the Riveter statue that was dedicated in 2012 next to the site of the former Curtiss Wright factory that operated around the clock, designing, testing, and building airplane engines. In closing, I'd like you to come with me. We're going to all do a mind trip, and we're going to go to Arlington, Virginia. And in Arlington, Virginia, we're going to head to the Women in Military Memorial. And if you look across the top, you'll see that they're big panels of like plexiglass. And on them are engraved some quotations, like this one by Bernice Hood Stroop, who said, quote, "It isn't just my brother's country or my husband's country, it's my country as well. And so the war wasn't just their war, it was my war, and I needed to serve in it." And now let's go all the way across the country to Richmond, California, where there's this marvelous memorial, the Rosie the Riveter Memorial, and in the foreground is an artist's replica, or that idea of this hull of a Liberty ship, because Liberty ships were made there. And if we stand in the hull and we walk down that concrete walk path, we walk down the concrete walk path, and as we walk, we're reading a timeline, we're reading quotes from women, and when we get to the end, and that's part of San Francisco Bay, and we stand at an overlook, if we look down, we'll see these words from a woman war worker, and I quote, "You must tell your children, putting modesty aside, that without us, without the women, there would have been no spring in 1945. Thank you.
Very good. She's a good historian. Certainly matter of facts, right?
And now we're going to recognize these wonderful women who are here, and in some cases, their family members who are here to represent them, and will be receiving their citations. Joan, would you come forward, please, to join us for this, and I'll have a little intro. I was going to talk about you a little bit.
Sorry, sure,
Right. So, this is Joan Voss, Vice Chair of the Freeholder Board, and she was an educator. After a successful career as an educator, she decided to join the group that made the policy about education and everything else in New Jersey public policy. She served in the Assembly for 8 years, after which she joined the Board of Freeholders, where she's completing her first term on that board. Thank you, Joan. I'm glad you arrived to help us.
Can I say a few words?
Sure.
I'm sorry I was late. I was at a late church service this morning, so I'm so happy to be here because I was a history teacher, and I was very well aware of your contributions to World War II. And I am so proud of you, and people don't realize the contributions that women made. And you heard on the speech about the pilots. Well, today, I know that in many, many countries, women are serving alongside of men, even in combat. So it's really important that they be recognized. I was amazed that over 400,000 women served in World War II. And I'm very proud of the fact that my town, Fort Lee, has a very, very active Veterans of Foreign War. And we have a lot of celebrations commemorating the contributions of veterans. And one of the nicest things is we haven't forgot the ladies. And one of my favorite things to say about women in politics or in the military is women are like tea bags. You don't know how tough they are until they hit hot water. So anyway, it's my pleasure to be here and to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your service and dedication to our wonderful nation. God bless you.
Thank you, Joan. Our list of people that I spoke with or spoke with their family or learned about is some 36 women of World War II who reside within Bergen. Of course, all of them are not able to join us today, but I'm going to read all of their names. And for those who are here, the county executive and other elected officials will be presenting them with certificates. Okay, the first is, and like Penny said, when we make mistakes, we admit. Because Mary, where did I put your list? In your program, Mary Bratkovich was listed as a volunteer. That's an error. She was, in fact, an Army nurse. And I believe Mary was expected to be here. Is she? Yeah. Wonderful.
There are three groups of people, as you know, whom we're honoring today. The first group are veterans. The veterans will receive a certificate. Well, I just want to say what we'll get. The veterans will receive certificates. They will receive a patch for outstanding service. And the veterans, we have a tradition here in Bergen County where we award to veterans a service medal from the county. It's the seal of Bergen County on one side, and on the other side is the American Eagle and three words: duty, honor, country. And those women will receive that today, or their family members, if there are family members here on behalf of them. And the other people whom we're honoring will get certificates from myself and from the Board of Freeholders and from the Senate and District 38 and the Assembly, and a patch as well. I just wanted to let that know. Are you going to say the names for us, Lucy?
Right.
When you're called, please come up and we'll take your picture right here in the back. If family are here and want to come up with them and get your picture taken, that's okay too. This is a family-friendly event. Okay, Lucy, go.
So Mary just was added to our list with correct information yesterday. So she's not in the right place in your program. But she is here, and she is an Army nurse.
Mary, I want you to come right here, please.
Okay, folks. We'll take two here and then two more. Okay.
Congratulations.
She's got her nurse's cape on.
Next, we have a Marine, Barbara Ward Christensen. And you'll note in your program, next listed is Vivian Stockton. Unfortunately, she passed away after we had compiled the list. If any member of her family is here to accept on her behalf, you're most welcome. And next, another Marine, Martha Borgi D'Amico. I believe a family member is here on her behalf.
He has a picture of his mother here, and we are awarding it to Joseph.
Next is Army nurse Lavon Nagondia. I believe she's still in Florida. I don't think any family member came to represent her today. Okay. Next is a Coast Guard Dorothy Dempsey.
Should I run?
I grew up with her children.
This is the original bag from 1940, so it's a little
Thank you. Your original purse from 1940?
nothing in it.
Thank you so much.
Kathy was my brownie. That's what she wanted to say. That's good.
No, Miss Dempsey, wait, you gotta get a picture. Show this to Susan. Joni, did you get it?
I got it. I got it.
Awak Jane Emanuel.
Right here, Miss Dempsey.
Hello, I'm so glad to meet you in person.
Your niece right there. Yep, she's taking a picture, so let me take this moment and say, on behalf of Bergen County, thank you so much for your service. We're honored. Thank you.
Here first.
She has to have the flag.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And I have to admit to another mistake. Margaret Henry Finn was actually a whack and not a whack. Is Margaret here?
I'm going to take your picture. Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
And I admit I missed somebody. Joan Lynch Cohn was away, and how could I miss her? She's a member of the League of Women Voters. I don't believe Joan is here, but perhaps Irma, would you like to take the certificate and medal for her since she belongs to that league? Okay.
We'll give it to her later. Right, we'll give it to her later.
Right, we'll make sure that you get that before you leave, okay? So now we are down to Alice Marie Full, a dear friend of many of us, and
My secretary.
yes.
Her grandson is here.
And we have Morgan here.
You have Alice's picture?
Oh, that's great. Did you get it? Yep. Good job, guys. Good job.
That Alice was secretary to the first Bergen County Charter Commission, which I chaired, the second Bergen County Charter Commission chaired by my husband, and then worked
Oh, yes, she was secretary for a long time.
in the clerk.
Yes, county
Right.
clerk's office, yep.
Right. So she has a wonderful history here. Next, Daisy Gleason was away. My marks don't indicate that she's here. Is anyone here who can accept on the behalf of Daisy? No. Okay, next we have Sylvia Greenstein, a WAC. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh.
And the other one is Jonathan.
I'm gonna walk you back.
Thank you. I need help. Thank you. We need
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ruth Considine LaLola, an Army surgical nurse. Is she with us? And then Marie Shatton McCarthy was an Army nurse. I believe she's here. Right. Yes, I was pretty sure that, that she would not be here. She had indicated she would not. Hortense Mock, who is an Army WAC, a nurse. Is Hortense here? We spoke with her yesterday and expected her.